I see people every day who want to pursue parenthood, but they're afraid of it. They're afraid that it's not fair to have a child if they don't have a traditional family. They're afraid to pursue parenthood through donor conception or surrogacy. And yet they really want to be parents. And so today I decided to do something a little different and not talk about fertility treatment, but introduce you to somebody who is pursuing being a father with gusto. This is Miles Garber. He's a fashion model. He is not a fertility patient, and he's decided that he wants to be a very involved father. And he wants to change the face of fatherhood in America. This is his mission. So today you will hear his story and how he's made this decision and how he wants to be a different role model than the ones that he's known in his life. So pull up a chair, enjoy this episode. I know you will. Welcome to Building Your Family. This is a podcast about fertility treatment, donor conception, surrogacy, and also all the ways the modern family is built. And that is what I'm going to emphasize today when you meet Miles Garber. He's a wonderful person who will tell you all about his journey to be a different sort of dad. The newspapers, and he's been in many newspapers, has said that Miles is on a quest to change the conversation around manhood in America. And I agree with them. I think that he's an incredible voice for people who want to parent and be involved as parents in a way that may not feel traditional. So today's episode is not about fertility treatment, but it is about asserting yourself to be the kind of parent that you want to be. So I hope that you will get a lot out of this podcast because Miles is a wonderful guy. He started as a model and is now an advocate for being a great dad, in essence. So Miles, thanks so much for coming. I'm really happy to have you here. Would you like to share a little bit about your story and how you decided to move from this, glamorous life of being a model to, making pancakes and braiding hair?
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to talk about these things. So basically, I was born in New York to a single mother. I moved to LA when I was just 2 weeks old to live with my grandmother, and kind of so began my life. And my life, I tell people, was very colorful. I saw things, that people kind of only see in movies. I understood the way the world worked, I think, a lot younger than most people do. And I say this a lot, and it's not to sound cool, but my life had tremendous consequences attached to it at all times. Every action had 3 or 4 or 5 reactions. And so I grew up in this way where it kind of felt like every day was not promised. And I was very aware of that fact. And then I graduated high school. My mom basically made me promise her. She was like, "You're going to graduate high school." And I did that for my mom. I didn't really want to. I didn't really care, but I did it for my mom. I graduated by the skin of my teeth.
Mm-hmm.
I went to maybe one of the most notorious high schools in Los Angeles, and I made it out, and I'm very proud of where I went to school, and I'm very blessed to have the teachers I had who very much were like, "You're going to graduate. We're not letting you fail." When I graduated high school, I needed to get out. My life was getting a little tragic. My friends were passing away. People weren't really doing very many positive things around me. And I felt like it was in my best interest to leave. So I went to San Francisco, and I actually went to college. And when I got to college, I wasn't prepared to embrace other people. Again, I was a survivor, and I'm around all these kids who grew up very differently than me. It was very, very hard for me to accept them. And I felt like they accepted me, but it was kind of in this way of, I was kind of a spectacle. I was like, "Oh, look at this kid. He's insane." And, from where I came from, I wasn't insane at all. I was actually like kind of fairly good. I couldn't shake it at college. I mean, the dorms made me insane. I got into some like really bad activities. Thank God nothing too dramatic happened to me, but my mom gave me a phone call one day when I was at school, and my mom's originally from New York City, and she was basically like, "I'm done. You're out of the house. I want to go back to New York. I can't stand it here anymore." I've lived in LA for 18
Wow.
years. I want to go home. And I was like, well, I'm coming with. And she was like, are you serious? And I was like, I don't want to be here. Like, this means nothing to me. And so I think I landed in New York a month later. It was really quick. I was 18 years old. I basically had a suitcase. And so I got to New York, and, New York was this crazy place. It was a place where I really felt like I could be whoever I wanted for the first time in my life.
Mm-hmm.
People are out on the street. People talk to you. Like, in LA, it's all about where you're from, who you know, what are you up to, what are you about. In New York, it was like, whatever, man. With that being said, about a month into New York, I was like, man, this place is not cheap, like, at all. And I had
No.
modeled when I was very young, and I hated it, and I quit, and I didn't want to do it. And my mom was like, you need to get a job or you need to go to school. You got to pick one. So I got a job at Magnolia Bakery through a mutual friend. And about a week or two into Magnolia Bakery, I was like, I can't just work at a bakery. Like, what am I doing? I found my old agent's phone number from when I was a kid. And, he answered the phone and he was like, Miles Garber. He's like, I have been waiting for this call for many years. And I was like, hey
Wow.
man, like, do you think I could actually like do this whole modeling thing? Like, I know in New York it's like crazy. Like, I don't know what anything is. Like, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, let's go on some meetings. So I started meeting agencies, and I got signed to DNA Model Management, which at the time was basically one of the biggest and most esteemed agencies in the world. And I was with DNA for 10 years, and now I'm with IMG Worldwide, which is still one of the biggest in the world. And I've been modeling now for 16 years.
Wow.
So, as much as modeling has been a hard thing and it's a weird industry to be in because, we're freelancers, it's, peaks and valleys. But I think in a lot of ways it also saved me because it taught me how to talk to other people. It taught me how to be proud of where I'm from, but also be accepting of where other people are from. I mean, I was a kid
Okay.
where if you went to private school, I could not talk to you. I would
Hmm.
be like, I cannot exchange words with this person solely based off of the fact that you went to private school. My daughter is now in private school, by the way.
Hmm.
I've really grown up in this industry, and I'm grateful for it in that way. And, luckily now it's like I have friends all over the world. And like, I think for me, it just goes back to gratitude because a lot of people that I grew up with, like, they don't have these opportunities. They didn't have these opportunities. They don't know people around the world. They've never been to Paris. I mean, I've lived in Paris. Fast forward in 2020, my ex got pregnant, and it was not planned. And, I hate to use the word accident, but it was just like completely out of nowhere. This sounds a little bit woo woo, but I felt this like bigger presence surrounding it. I was like, something is telling me that like I need to do this. And obviously it's not my choice entirely because I'm not the one carrying the child, but I
Right.
told her at the time, I was just like, I want to do this. Like, I need to do this. Like, this is it. Like, this is the time. We went back and forth for a couple months, which was really gut wrenching. And she finally realized it was the time for her too. And then the pandemic hit. It was
Hmm.
just a weird thing. And when my daughter was born, it was kind of like I was reborn again. I mean, I remember she came out
Wow.
of the womb, and I kind of crashed into the wall. I basically I couldn't really talk for a few days. I didn't eat much. I didn't feel very connected to her. I didn't want to hold her. I felt really weird and scared and completely unsure of myself. And then something switched, and I just went on this tirade that's now been about 3 years, of just putting out content, figuring out what this all means, trying to be a pillar in my community for other dads or, people who identify as dads, and just kind of put my mistakes and learnings and so whatever's on display for other people. And I think for me, growing up without a father, I never even met my dad till about 2 years ago. My daughter inspired me to actually find my dad.
Wow.
For me, it's like I remember what it's like to grow up with all that anger and to feel like you don't matter, and to feel, I think I spent most of my life asking my mom like why she had me. Like I truly felt like a walking mistake. I don't want
Wow.
anybody to feel that way, and I don't want kids
Of
to feel that
course.
way. And I don't want other dads to think that's even an option for them, because that's just fear. When you do that to a kid, obviously some circumstances are different, but when you actively do that to a child, like, you're living in this fear and this shame. And I don't want people to feel that way. Like, everyone makes mistakes. I'm not mad about it anymore, but if I'm this cool guy model who, like, people somewhat listen to, if I can affect one person, that's amazing, especially with the world we live in now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of my whole MO.
So, Miles, what I'm really interested in is, and I hear this so much from so many people in my audience, is they feel insecure about pursuing parenthood, whether it's they're afraid to have a child conceived with a donor or a surrogate, or they're afraid to be two dads or two moms or one dad and one mom. There's all this judgment that people sometimes feel about themselves and feel like I don't have a right to be a parent if I do X, if I'm not the kind of, you know, heteronormative profile of what, the 1950s household should look like. Maybe I shouldn't do it, or maybe I don't know if I'm a man how to have a girl because I don't really understand what girls' needs are. And so I guess I'm wondering, and I think it'd be so helpful for people to know how you got through that obstacle. You made a conscious choice to be a very involved father, and you put posts on your social media profile about all these lovely things that you do with your daughter, traveling with her, braiding her hair, doing all sorts of fun things together and really being involved. How did you get over that obstacle of feeling like, okay, I'm not going to just leave everything up to mom, and I really can jump in, and whatever I don't know, I can teach myself? And how did you get there?
I love this question. And for me, when I met my biological father, I'm not mad at him anymore. As two men meeting, I would say we're fine. I don't really consider him my dad, and I don't think he really considers me his son. And that's not a sad thing. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But I looked at someone and I looked at myself, and he's a great dad to my sisters. But when I
Oh.
was conceived and when I was birthed, he shouldn't have been allowed to be a parent. And I really realized that some people really shouldn't be parents, and some people really should be parents. One of the
Mm.
first men I ever interviewed is a man that means a lot to me. And, he is one of two dads. Someone in my family couldn't conceive naturally and is about to have a kid, and is going to probably teach me more about parenting than I could ever read on the internet. There's so
Mm.
many people out there who I think are, like, really destined to be good parents. And I think that the heteronormative nuclear family dynamic that we're actually seeing the adverse effect of that a lot of times. There are studies that show kids who grow up with cohesive co-parents are usually better off psychologically than people who grow up with two parents who are just together just to be together and fight all the time.
Yeah.
We are seeing that a lot of couples that are same sex stay together longer than hetero couples. And there's all these new studies, and it's kind of an amazing time to be a parent in that way, that there's so many ways to peel this onion. And I think some people are built for this, and this is like a destiny for them. I think you asked me how to give someone confidence. I think that's really on the person to ask themselves. It's like, you could be a parent in any way you want to be. You could anything, any way. But do you want to be? And if the answer is yes, then, like, go for it. Because in a lot of ways, I also, not to sound woo woo again, but I think children choose their parents. Maybe it's ethereally,
Mm-hmm.
I don't
Mm-hmm.
know, but I think they
Mm-hmm.
do. And that doesn't
Mm-hmm.
mean that you have to have this heteronormative way of getting there. A kid will still choose you to be their parent. I mean, I have friends who are adopted and they know their biological parents, and those aren't their parents.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Parenting is very specific to you and your kid. And I think so many people deserve that opportunity, and they need to feel confident in that. And those old structures, they're falling apart, which is kind of
Yes.
awesome. It's
Yes,
really
absolutely.
awesome.
My name is Lisa Schumann. I'm a therapist, a researcher, an author, and I am passionate about helping people find a better journey to parenthood. I created the Center for Family Building to help people understand how to make decisions, not just for the short term, but for a lifetime. We have group counseling, individual counseling, couples counseling, and lots of other services that can help people find the answers that they're looking for. Just take a look at our website so you can see a few of the thousands of people we helped build a better path to parenthood. The decisions you make are too important to leave up to chance. Arm yourself with the right information. Take a look at our website and sign up for a session with one of our therapists, join one of our groups, or access one of our programs, and you will quickly see why our strategies are so effective. Now back to our episode. And yet, even though it's becoming more of the norm to have every kind of family, a lot of people feel so insecure and afraid, right? And, I would imagine that there might have been times where you had these experiences, maybe when you were alone with your child and you were, trying to figure out how to burp her for the first time, or trying to help her, pick out a dress and you've never worn a dress, or maybe you've had to understand how to help her potty train or whatever it might be that you've never done before. And somehow people feel like men don't know how to do that and women do. And obviously women don't know any better than men know, but there is this assumption there, and men sometimes feel insecure about that.
I'll tell you a story, and I'll be very vulnerable right now. I was misdiagnosed bipolar, and I was on severe bipolar medicine that made
Wow.
me a person that I never knew I could be. I was not okay. And there was a period of time during that tenure of being misdiagnosed and being medicated that I was incredibly suicidal, which should have been the first signs of I was not medicated correctly. But
Mm-hmm.
things happen. I was really
Yes.
suicidal. And I remember I told my mother that it would be better for me to go and my daughter be raised by another man. Now, I don't believe that. At the time, I thought I did, but I don't believe that. But I think, we all have our own traumas, and we all inherit these different guilts that like aren't necessarily always in our control. Mine was drug induced because those meds are, it's a form of drug. It's pharmaceutical. Okay. Mine was drug induced. Other people, it might be like, man, I freaking suck at braiding hair, and that spins them out. Or, oh, I hate potty training. Like I suck at this. Or like, oh, I've never changed a diaper. Like, what am I doing? And I think because historically men were taught like, we're not really taught emotions. It's a lot easier for us to show frustration, but
Yes.
frustration isn't what it looks like. Frustration, in my opinion, a lot of times comes from it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing to not know what you're doing. And especially
Mm.
men who were raised in certain generations, probably honestly until now, when you're not good at something, you suck. There's no like, I
Yes, it's
mean, at
true.
least in my experience, guys don't really like, come on, man, you could do it. Let's do it together. I'll teach you. Like, we don't have that relationship with one another. We make fun of each other. That's how men
Mm.
operate. Not
Mm-hmm.
always. I don't want to get, put on the cross here, but it's not always, but usually that's a man to man interaction is, oh, you suck.
So interesting. Yes.
And I think where I'm getting to with this is everyone sucks at first. I didn't know how to change a
Mm-hmm. Of
diaper. I
course.
didn't know how to do a swaddle. I didn't know how to do any of that stuff. I absolutely sucked at it. And then you get a little better. You get a little better. Now, like, I will literally like have, moms be like, can you swaddle my daughter? Like, cause I'm so good at it because I
Mm-hmm.
learned how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're
Mm-hmm.
just gonna suck. And that's cool. You should suck. You're both learning
Mm-hmm.
each other.
Mm-hmm.
I always tell people, it's not that you suck and shouldn't have done this. It's that you are learning a new language. No one's going to come to you and
Mm.
be like, speak French if you don't speak French. You have to learn it.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same
Mm-hmm.
thing. It's a new language.
It's so interesting. So that's very interesting because I told you before we started that I've seen a lot of men worried as their surrogate starts to get close to delivery. Oh my God, I can't take care of a little girl. How am I going to do this? How am I going to take care of a baby? I'm not a woman. But it's so interesting that what you're saying is that men very traditionally say if they're bad at something, then that's a severe criticism. That's not okay to be bad at something. To start and just improve on it, it feels like you have to be good at it from the start. And that's kind of some judgment that men have about themselves.
Hmm. At least in my upbringing.
Absolutely. I think that's spot on and so true. And I hope that's helpful for a lot of people to hear because everybody has to learn this. I mean, you have traveled the world with your daughter. You've done, I mean, lots of parents are afraid to just, get their child on a plane, right? And you've traveled the world with your daughter. You've done all of these things and you take them on with a lot of enthusiasm and gusto and feel like this is a great thing to do. You're willing to embrace not knowing, which is really
Hmm.
fantastic.
That's all you can do, really, though.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And what other things do you feel that you've learned as being a father to your daughter? What else do you feel like this has taught you, Miles?
I'm a really emotional person, and I didn't really understand that till I had my
Hmm.
daughter. I think there's this like age old joke that girls have their dads wrapped around their finger.
Yes.
Unfortunately for me, that's like very true. My daughter like
Hmm.
totally has me wrapped around her
Yeah.
finger. But it's also, I like being wrapped around her finger in a way. I'm just so freaking sensitive. And I think when I used to be a tough guy or I used to get really angry with people or like verbally attack them or whatever I used to do, it's just me being sensitive. And now it's like, I'm just sensitive. Like, I just tell people, I'm like, hey, my feelings are hurt by that. Like I'm so
Mm.
outwardly sensitive. And I think that's like really what I like. My daughter has just been such a mirror. Like, it's just like, cut the crap, man. Like, like, you're not fooling anybody.
Hmm. So you've come in touch with your sensitivity and you feel like you're able to show her kind of a different side of yourself.
Yeah, like I'm just such a mush for my kid, and I think it's made me a better person, but more so it's just helped me learn myself. I don't even want to associate with people who can't express their emotions anymore. Like, it's just, I'm not like judging them, but it's just I'm at a point where like I've done so much work to be as like open emotionally as I can for my kid that it's just not even of interest to me anymore.
And when you say open emotionally for her, how does that show itself?
My daughter sees a dad who is nice to people. I don't yell at people when I'm driving, even if they cut me off in front of her. I don't talk down to people. I try to speak the other languages I know around people who that's their native tongue. I hold doors open for people. I say please and thank you. Like, I do all these things because she's looking at it all the time. And now at school, when we have like teacher conferences, her teacher is like, she's just like the most polite kid. I ingrained these things
Hmm.
into her by just showing her, like, hey, like, it doesn't feel good when you talk down to someone. It's not cool to be entitled. Like, we're all here, we're all on this freaking earth, and we all have to share this space, especially in a city. You have to share a lot of space and you make a lot of concessions, and it's just not worth it to be mean. It's just lame. It's boring,
Mm-hmm.
like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't care what,
Mm-hmm.
like, your about your Range Rover. That doesn't make you better than me. And if you feel that way, like, I feel for you. That sucks.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
my kid isn't going to be that person because I'm not that person. And I just consistently show up in that way all the time. And I tell her, I'm like, hey, daddy's frustrated right now. Because also she should learn how to be mad the right way. I was taught to be mad the wrong way, but she should learn, like, hey, it's okay to be like, hey, I'm frustrated. I need a moment. That's
Mm-hmm.
amazing. And she does that. She's 3 and she says that. She's like, Dad, I need a moment. And I'm like, "Good, take your
Really?
moment, girl." Yeah. I'm trying to raise someone who's emotionally mature because, especially in this city, people are incredibly mean and entitled. And it always makes me laugh because I'm a local and I don't remember LA people being like this, like people who are really from here, but it's all around us, G Wagons, the whole 9 yards. And that's not a judgment either. It's fine. It's just, I don't think entitlement is anything but more embarrassment. And I don't want my kid to be embarrassed to be who she is or feel how she feels. And with that, I'm really proud of myself because my daughter is incredibly confident. She
Mm.
goes to a restaurant and she talks to people. She gets on if there's music she likes, she gets up and she starts dancing. Like she is exactly who she is because of these ways of being. And to me, that means way more than anything else. And that also goes back to you talking about parenting, right? Like, if that's how you're showing up for your kid and that's the way your kid is acting, like you are doing something right, whether you're yellow, purple, alien, marshmallow, whatever you are, you're doing something right if your kid acts like that. And you deserve to be a parent if that's how you're going to be. That's how I feel.
That's wonderful. So I guess what you're saying in the end is if you feel like your desire is to raise a good human, then that's the most important element, not all of this other stuff, and that you have to kind of keep that in focus.
Yeah, absolutely. I have
Mm-hmm.
friends who've used surrogates. I've had friends who have been through, 4 rounds of IVF. I have friends who have conceived naturally. I have a gambit of friends. And the thing is we're all friends because we're good parents. Like, no one's sitting there
Mm-hmm.
being like, oh, you had a home birth or like, oh, you used a surrogate. Like, no way. We're all here because
Mm-hmm.
we're parents. That's it. No one cares.
Right. You all just want the same thing for your child, and you feel confident that if you want that, that you can pursue that. And even if it's imperfect, you'll just keep working on it and getting better all the time as you pursue being a better parent, if that's what your goal is.
Yeah, I mean, I have a friend who it took 6 years for her to conceive, and it was horrible. It was a really, really hard 6 years for her. Her daughter's almost 3 now, and I mean, she's like the best mom I've ever, like, I wish she was my mom sometimes. Like, she's
Mm.
amazing. Like, my point is though, is like no one's sitting here being like, that baby took 6 years. Like nobody's thinking that way. And if they are,
Hmm.
they're insane. And you should never speak to that person again.
Hmm. Hmm. Right. So I think the message here to everybody is if you want to be a parent and you feel like this is something that you're called to do, you should pursue it and find a way to make it right. Whatever anxieties you have, embrace them and just keep pursuing it.
Absolutely.
And I think that this is a great example, Miles. You really dove in and
One thing I always want to say to people too is, we've been having children for millennia. Yeah, of course, with modern ways of doing it, it can look a little different than it did in medieval times. But beyond that, as human beings, we have been having children since the dawn of time, like since we
mhm,
were cavemen. So trust your instincts. Like they're there. They've been there for a long time. It's in your lizard brain to be a parent.
mhm,
Like, don't forget that. You know what
mhm,
you're doing before you even know what you're doing. You know what I mean?
mhm. That's wonderful. Well, I think that's a beautiful place for us to wind down, Miles. Thank you so much for your advice and your wisdom and for sharing all these beautiful pictures of you and your daughter. I love looking at them. She is so beautiful. And it's so
Thank
nice to
you.
see the two of you interacting and, growing together because it sounds like you're teaching her, but she's teaching you also. And that's, the icing on the cake, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, gosh. It's my pleasure, Miles. Where can people find you?
At Miles Garber. A lot of new content's coming out, a lot of events, a lot of meetups. Like I'm really gonna go for it, and a lot's in the works right now, and I'm really excited.
And what would you like to do? What are your plans?
Just keep building these safe spaces. For me, I'm a dad. I can't really speak on anything but that because that's not very fair in my opinion. So I just want to keep building this safe space for dads And you don't have to look like me to be included in being a dad. But these safe spaces for dads to just learn and to grow and to let go of the things that we went through and what happened to us, and advocate for our voices, because we don't always get a voice as dads. I think it's really easy to write dads off. I think it's also
Yes.
really easy to play this role of like, oh, I don't give a shit because I'm a dad. Like, and nobody needs to do that anymore. So I just want to keep advocating for us, because, you know, it's so important for us to be in our kids' life. I mean, and thank God now there's so much psychology and research around the importance of fathers in their kids' life. And I encourage people to read, you know, all of those studies. It's really amazing.
Well, children need somebody to parent them well. It doesn't matter who that is. And I think that that's really important for you in your message. And I so appreciate you sharing that with our audience. So everyone out there, please visit Miles on Instagram and follow him for his new events. I can't wait to see what he'll come up with next. And thank you so much for joining me. You can find me on familybuilding.net, and please subscribe, because that's how we keep going. So thanks for coming. Hi, it's Lisa Schumann. I hope that you enjoyed that video, and I hope it helped you. And if it did, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe, because that's how we keep going. It's really important to us. And if you liked it, you might like this one.